cool things to know about alcohol ink. First thing to know is that it is a great solvent medium. It is a medium that is designed for plastic, metal, glass. It is permanent, has a drying time of about 7 to 10 seconds. Its specialty, of course, are slick surfaces. So when you use alcohol ink, you want to think that your surfaces need to be slick. That would be alcohol ink or glossy cardstock, Yupo paper, anything with a coating. If you try to use alcohol ink on regular paper, watercolor paper, it doesn't work. It just doesn't play. Alcohol ink is also designed to be used with itself. It doesn't like to work with other mediums. People try to use alcohol ink with distress ink or oxide. It doesn't mix like most water-based things do because it is a solvent. Now, it is a highly flammable ink, so you want to work in a well-ventilated area, don't craft by candlelight, yada yada, all the safety out of the way. Okay, when you work with these inks, they're very intense, very saturated colors, and for years, if you have grown a collection of alcohol ink, the biggest problem, of course, was storage. There just wasn't a way. Mine used to be in a bin. I would always dig for my colors, because even when I tried to line them up on the shelf, I would go to grab one and knock 6 over. So there was really nothing until we come up with the tin. And the tin is very strange because it looks like it is upside down. It is built that all of your inks sit in that tin, and all of these inks also fit in their own track. So when you put these in and travel, you don't have to worry about all your bottles going together. This will fit enamel accents. This will also fit stickles. So it's got this little channel that you can just press everything in. We also designed it to where there's space far enough apart that at a glance you can see the color. You can look at the label. I know people always want to put little dots and everything on there, and we had to when it was in a box. But now when you're looking at it from the front, you can see enough of that label to know this is an orange, this is a green, and you simply pop those out. All right? So this holds 30 bottles of ink. It holds obviously your mixatives. And there's a lot of different colors in here, but I'm going to talk about the new colors that we've added to the palette. It's always exciting when we add to alcohol ink because it used to be part of the Adirondack line for those old school users of Ranger. Ranger used to have an Adirondack mountain line that no one knew how to say, but it was still a good color palette nonetheless. Now alcohol inks are just their own thing, so we can add colors as we want. So here are the new colors with alcohol ink. The first one is crimson. Okay, these are the current colors in alcohol ink as far as red, but crimson is this really deep, rich, dark red. Because the interesting thing about these inks, you can add as many layers of a color, and you're only going to intensify that particular color. You're never going to make Poppy Field have blue unless you added blue to it, and by the time you did that, you probably had purple, right? So whenever we can create a new color, it's very exciting because it's not like making anything else. When you create a solvent color, you have to work with a whole different set of dyes that apparently are very challenging for the chemist, but they rocked out some great colors. So that is crimson. Oh, I'm saving that one for last. Put my hand in front of me. All right. Next color we have is a yellow, and it's interesting because for all the years that we've had alcohol ink, we've really never had a yellow, right? We've had sunshine yellow and honeycomb and butterscotch, but now we have dandelion. So it's like, it's awesome. It's really, really good. It is a yellow. It is a happy yellow, which is great. But it's weird that I thought, like, we have a yellow. Like, I got this, and then you put it down, you're like, we've never had a yellow in like, I think they've been out for maybe 10 or 11 years. Yellow. All right. Then in the world of turquoise. Now, turquoise colors are very popular in alcohol inks because they make beautiful backgrounds, great sky, great patinas, all of that. And we've had a lot of them, but we added turquoise, I think it was a couple of years ago. And then when we made the jump, the next color was stream, which almost became a teal color. So that's why I wanted to do aquamarine, where it was definitely a bluer turquoise, but not into that teal of stream. So we added that. It's a great, great color. In the greens, we added pistachio. Wonder where that came from. Don't know. Inspired by another palette, but it's still a good color, right? All bets were off. I didn't have to stay in my lane on that. And same thing with coral, right? Because in coral, like I didn't want an orange, I didn't want a pink, but coral is really good, and a lot of people are doing some beautiful, beautiful backgrounds with the inks. Then we also introduced mixatives. We don't normally introduce mixatives. Mixatives, because you can't create a color, you actually have to find the metallic particle. I think there's 5 mixatives in the whole line, but we've added 2 new colors. So the metallic mixatives, and I'll kind of tip it in the light to hope that you guys that are filming or taking a photo can see it. If not, just tell me to keep moving or turn it this way or turn it that. But the metallic mixatives are just that. They are an opaque metallic alcohol ink. They are designed though to be mixed with the colors. They're really not designed to be used like this, but what's nice is understanding the colors. Now we've had silver, gold, and copper. We also have pearl and white, but those are just white ones. We're introducing gunmetal and rose gold. Rose gold is that beautiful blush, almost champagne color, and of course gunmetal for those grunge people that like to really create those cool backgrounds. It's that dark gray that almost has a texture in it, not really, but kind of looks like it would. So those two new mixatives are awesome. They're sold open stock or in sets, so you can, that's another cool thing that Ranger did to show. Usually when we release new alcohol ink, you have to commit to the sets. Now you can, as a store, you can either buy the sets or buy just those open stock colors. So let's do some backgrounds. I'm going to work on Yupo for this one.
Do they go on regular paper?
They really don't. No, they soak in and they're serious disappointment, right? Because they're so fast drying that they soak in and they're done, right? So, cool thing about this, I always have ink somewhere. On one of my fingers. Two surfaces. Alcohol ink cardstock was that glossy that we worked on. Yupo is a synthetic paper. Okay, so this looks and feels like paper. You can put anything on it. You can stamp with distress, you can do colored pencils, you can do watercolor, you can do whatever, but it is actually plastic, okay? It's a piece of plastic, so you can't tear it. You can cut it though, but you cannot rip this paper. What I like to do with this, more than anything, and I don't normally tell Mr. Stampers Anonymous, I make stencils out of this. Because any thin die you own will die cut Yupo. If you ever try to take a thin die and die cut plastic, it doesn't die cut. Kind of makes that mark a little bit, gets hung up. This you can make a clean cut and use any of your thin dies. So if you want word stencils, whatever, die cut through Yupo. Okay, now that I've trashed this one, yes, Ranger sells it. We actually partnered with Yupo. They're the original company that does it. They sell it in the art world. So normally Yupo is sold in like, 30 by 30, 20 by 40 sheets for painters. And they actually have an alcohol ink painter. She's teaching, I think, a couple classes today. Her name is Sharon, and she will be in the booth for the next 2 days. You've got to come and check out her demos. She will paint with alcohol ink and blow your freaking mind. Because she will take a blob of something, and before you know it, it's like, there's a bee, there's a cactus, and if you're like, I can't paint, which I can't paint, when you watch her, you think, how? I'm serious, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, she's from Tucson, we actually met her. So she's doing, I think, 2 classes. She's doing a class later today, and then one tonight that involves wine.
Is she doing a demo here?
She'll be demoing tomorrow and the next day. So yeah, they've got to have a schedule posted, but I'm telling you guys, like, I don't normally watch a lot of demos, because I kind of done a lot, I kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it, I want a little break. When we were at NAMTA last year, I stood the entire time for both days, and I was just like, Maria's like, you want to walk around? I'm like, nope. She's going to turn that into something. It's a bumblebee. I know it. Because I'm trying to figure out, like, what is she doing with that blog? And then she did Paris. Oh, you need to ask her to see. She's Eiffel Tower, people there, little rain in the back. It's in minutes. I'm not talking like, oh, come back next week and I'll show you the finished one.
She's got a different kind of.
Oh, it's crazy, crazy. All right, anyway. These two surfaces are very interesting because when it comes to alcohol ink, this one, Glossy, we've already seen with oxide, is going to grab every color. So I like to demo side by side because many of us that have used alcohol inks are familiar with alcohol ink cardstock. We see it. So you got to see, well, like, how is this different? Why is it different? All right. One new thing to the alcohol ink world is also its own tool. This is a Ranger thing. Because everybody loves the mini blending tool now, they're like, what about a mini alcohol ink tool? I'm like, it's the same thing. But these aren't. So now they sell felts in little circles. And so, yeah, whatever. Whatever works, right? I don't care. All right. So when it comes to working with the inks, I'm just going to open these up. I will tell you a couple of tips. I mean, I've been using inks for a bazillion years. I have found I used to be really kind of careless when it came to my lids. I will. If you watch earlier demos, you'll hear me joke about the fact that they're black lids, throw them aside. And then I found it gets a little annoying when you're going for a certain color. If you don't match your lids back up, and I had purple ink and I put it on top of my orange, when I go to ink up the tool, there's a little purple residue that now put purple on there, and it's that unexpected no. So just my advice, and I say that, but usually when I start demoing, these will shuffle themselves magically. I'm sure I'm not doing it, but before you know it, they're done. So I'm just going to line up a few colors. Another cool thing you'll notice about the bottle if you're new to alcohol inks, and you can best tell from this green one, as soon as you open up these inks, you can see it in the yellow, the light colors, this alcohol ink actually gets sucked up from the bottom of the bottle, okay? and it forms a little bead of ink that traps it into the bottle. So that is going to allow these bottles to stay open for hours at a time and never evaporate. That's great if you do classes, if you do big paintings. Even though this is a fast drying ink, you don't have to worry about it drying up in the bottle because of how it's designed. So let's load this up. I'm going to squeeze some color in there. I may or may not use all these colors, but now I have options. And I'm just going to squeeze some of that on there. I'm just putting the nib into that felt, giving it a quick little squeeze. We'll put a little bit of that. And then we'll talk about the mixative. Okay? The mixative has to be shaken up. It is a pigment. These you don't have to shake, but the mixative you need to. And I'm going to apply some mixative right onto that ink tool. Look, metallic, it's opaque. Less is more in the world of mixative, okay? Because mixative, there's no takesies backsies, okay? Once you put mixative on there, it is on there, and pigment covers dye. So I don't care if you use 30 colors, if you use a lot of mixative, that is your background. And you better love it, because that is all you're gonna see. So just put a little bit on there. Then when I go to stamp this, those are my colors on alcohol ink cardstock, my Glossy, and my colors on Yupo. So far so good, pretty similar. I'm just gonna keep moving some of this color around on both surfaces. And let's add some colors. Let's start going in and adding more, because I just like to get color down before I get a little particular. Now the whole thing to make all of this happen is going to be blending solution. Blending solution is to alcohol ink what water is to watercolor. It is a resin-based ink, which means it should never be sprayed because it will stick to the lining of your lungs if you inhale it. If you happen to spray it in your eyes, it will stick to your eyes. That's why you don't spray it. It's in a dropper bottle. So I'm going to squeeze that on there, and you will see that as soon as it touches, it removes the ink. Blending solution will blend, lighten, or remove our inks. So on here, I'm just gonna go in and blend. That's pretty cool. It's starting to get really saturated, really dark. But here I'm gonna blend, and you can see a whole different thing happening with my Yupo, okay? My colors still remain very light, very separated, my layers. My alcohol ink cardstock is starting to get a little dark, okay? So that gives you an option. We can change our felt, that's one option, because that might give me a cleaner palette, but not necessarily. So I'm gonna go in with a couple more colors. Maybe I'll put in a little bit more blending solution. Maybe I'll introduce a little bit of that yellow as well. And when I go back in, when I work on my alcohol ink cardstock, it's just going to start getting muddy. My Yupo, whatever I introduce, it will completely change it. It will replace it. So no matter how much color you put on here, the Yupo is always going to add a whole new depth, a whole new layer. And if you don't like the way something looks, you can wipe it off of Yupo, okay? You can't wipe it off of this. This you can go in with a cloth and you can completely change it, but you can also go in, we'll fill in the blanks, we'll fix it. Now shaking color. If I shake color on this, it's just gonna become dark. If I shake it on this, it really illuminates, kind of creates these big glows. Same thing with blending solution, right? If I shake that, you can see the intensity of that doesn't really do much there. So this is a whole different substrate, a whole different surface that we can work on, and we can add such great colors to it. Now, I kind of like this background. I like doing these. These, if I do this, I found that when I'm doing this, call it polished stone or agates, it's a really challenging background to stamp over because it's busy. It's got a lot going on. It's still very cool, still very awesome. This one, not very cool, not very awesome, but at least you're able to see the difference. But here's what I like to do when it comes to backgrounds and Yupo. Yupo has this flow, right? So creating these backgrounds, taking my mixatives, take my color, I'm gonna put some mixative right on a craft sheet, and always put the lids on your mixative because you have to shake them. Shake on some color. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. That'll be good. A little bit of that. And now I'm just going to take my Yupo and I'm just going to start going through my colors. Okay? And I'm looking down here at my background of what I create. And I can create these fluid backgrounds, these really beautiful kind of luminous backgrounds depending on how you swirl that color. This makes it look like you just spent hours doing it. And if someone asked me that wasn't watching, I would say that. I'd say that background took a long time. It did. It took hours with a brush. I'm gonna dry this. I love that movement. See that little bit of ink right there? It only moved for a second. Beautiful. And you could keep going because if you didn't like this, if I went through it again, it would take that off and replace it with a new layer. So if you just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go with pink and yellow all the way, and you swiped it, this would be gone and replaced with pink and yellow, okay? But I love this background. I think this background is really, really pretty, but I'm gonna stamp on it. Let's stamp on it. Let's stamp bugs. Bugs are beautiful. All right, we'll stamp those. That will be nice, yeah? All right, we'll use this big guy. All right, set on rubber, good. Opposite corners, good. She didn't touch this one, I can tell. All right, so for this one, I'm just going to take my stamps. I think I'll stack them. That'll be good. And I'm going to stamp with archival again. Okay, so I've got rubber side. For this technique though, you can use any color archival ink. It could be red, gray, pink, yellow, it doesn't matter. Lighter the better actually. This one will be a little challenging, but I got this. I'm up for the challenge because it's black. It's really intense. Archival ink is Ranger's permanent ink. Okay? It's waterproof and it dries. So for this, I'm gonna ink this up really well. But when I stamp it, I'm gonna be ready. So I'm gonna go in, apply my image, stamp it. Stamps beautifully, but I'm gonna take a cloth and I'm going to remove this. And what that's going to do is create a resist. So it's going to actually create a ghosting of your image. So whether you use stamps, stenciled, anything, it creates that soft ghost. There's nothing there. It's completely smooth. It's gone. And it has crisp detail. So that to me is one of the great things about Yupo. You couldn't do that on the Glossy because once you put ink on there, you can't take it back. So that's a very cool way that you can use your stencils, your stamps, anything with your archival. Now, if I would have just let it dry, it would have been black. So I could have just stamped it and let it dry. That's cool. But I also like the fact that I can do that and then go in with another image and maybe stamp a word or a verse, or maybe you wouldn't choose insects, but I would because I think they're cool. That's one of the very cool things when it comes to working with your alcohol inks, is working with your Yupo, your colors, your background, and I will talk about this. Now, this is something that Sharon...
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to Scrap Time videos here on YouTube so you'll be the first to see all our videos from Creativation. And follow us on Instagram at Scrap Time Photos to see photos straight off the show floor.